You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hello, everyone. We're back at Stellar Success Podcast. I'm Dr. Tudor Francu, your host, and I have a great guest today. I'm very proud to have Dr. Alex Schloe with me today from Denver. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
That's great, Alex. Alex, let's start with a very simple question. What is success for you?
Wow, that's a good question that I think is hard to answer. But I think success is just achieving 1% more every day, or 1% more than what you thought you could do. So always just striving to be a little bit better each day is how I would measure success.
Awesome. You basically compare yourself with the earlier version of yourself.
Yeah, I'm always learning, always growing, and I figure if I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I'm dying. So
That's right. That's right. As Tony Robbins would say.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story? How did you start? What year's your journey, and where are you now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Alex Schloe. I'm a husband, father, a Christ follower. I'm a family medicine physician in the Air Force here in Colorado Springs, Colorado at Schriever Space Force Base. And I grew up in Virginia and have an identical twin brother, had great parents growing up. They ultimately divorced, but throughout that, we're able to find folks that they loved otherwise. And so very fortunate to have increased immediate family size, but I'm grateful for that. And was grateful to live in a house where my parents loved us a lot and loved us well and showed us the power of hard work, especially my dad, just really the power of hard work, how important it is to show up as a father and just be present. He would start work at 6 a.m. He would get up at 4, drive like hour and a half into work every day, start work at 6 so he could be off at 2 so he could get home in time to see our baseball game, and like that is being a great dad. And I didn't realize until I became one how valuable that was and just how much of a sacrifice that my dad was making to do that. It was incredible. So grew up with fantastic role models, always wanted to be a physician, actually always wanted to be a family medicine physician. My mom worked in a family practice in our small town, and the family med doc there, Dr. King, if you're listening, you just saw her all around. Like she was just very integral in the community. She'd come to baseball games, she'd be here at high school events. And it was just really cool to see like family medicine as it was supposed to be. And she took care of me, my brother, my parents, my grandparents. Like it was just really cool to have that relationship. And so I always knew I wanted to do family medicine. Went to college at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia, and then went to med school at the Medical College of Virginia, or VCU School of Medicine now in Richmond, Virginia. And then did residency at Eglin Air Force Base in Destin, Florida, which is where I did my family medicine residency. And then now here in Colorado Springs. So that brings us to present time from a medical perspective.
Very nice, very nice. So you're a very successful practitioner and professional. How do you deal with failures? Because part of being successful, it's someone who at some point in their lives had some kind of failure.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example, or how did you deal with it and how did it push you forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've all certainly failed at some point in our lives and in our journey. I think the key and kind of the mindset shift for me was like realizing that failure was just a stepping stone. And I just needed to keep taking one more step to climb up to the top of the mountain, and whatever that was, and try and enjoy that journey along the way. And I think by doing that, and by learning from your failures and by dusting yourself off and continuing to just climb one step at a time, you'll build that mentality and that mindset that will be helpful going forward. And those failures that used to seem so big will actually just be really small. In terms of a specific failure, I guess I've been kind of fortunate. I can't think of any right off the top of my head, which is good. I think I've certainly failed at different points in my life, like whether that be as a husband or as a dad. In the same thing, I just try and learn from them. And I think something that's been helpful for me is I have a pretty strict morning routine, and part of that's journaling. And oftentimes I just write down like word vomit of what I'm thinking or what I'm working on. And part of that is like, hey, how did I fail as a dad, or how did I fail as a husband, and how am I going to do or handle that situation differently? It can be little things of like, hey, I raised my voice and got angry at my son for something that was minor, or I wasn't present when my wife was telling me about her day, and I was just kind of zoned out, and just stuff like that I try and, like I mentioned before, like just get a little bit better each day.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned your morning routine. Part of being a successful person is someone who is a very structured, I would say, daily routine. and knows the calendar and knows their schedule and plan ahead. Do you have any specific skills or habits that you do daily to help you being successful?
Yeah, so I'll just go right through my morning routine. So typically I'll wake up at 5 o'clock, brush my teeth, of course, get on my gym clothes, and I head to the gym. Luckily, the gym is right across the street from the clinic for me, so it works out great. I'll go to the gym. I'll work out about 45 minutes or so. I'm a big runner. I like to run. I feel like running and skiing are like two of the things where my mind just focuses on like that one thing. Or if I have a big problem I'm trying to solve and figure out, I feel like for some reason the answer comes while I'm running. And so I do really appreciate that. So I run a lot. Typically I'll work out, like I said, 45 minutes or so, go take a shower, and then I sit in my car for like 20, 25 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. I typically read the Bible or read a Christian adjacent book. And then I just take some time to journal and like meditate, pray, and think about the day. And I found that by doing that, it like just sets me up for such a better day in the clinic than if I slept until like the last minute, rushed to work, and like got to clinic all unprepared. And so that's been a big game changer. And it's really cool too to look back. I had mentioned journaling before. It's like really cool to look back and say like, oh, 5 years ago, like this was my worries. This is what I was thinking about. This is what I was struggling with, or whatever it may be, and see how far you've grown from that perspective. And one day it'll be really cool for my son when I'm dead, my sons now, when I'm dead, to look back and read those journals and be like, hey, at least dad might have had a little bit of wisdom at some point, you know? And so it's been really fun to do that. But I think having that structure and having that routine is, like you mentioned, super important to then kind of figure out like, hey, what's the roadmap for the rest of my day going to look like, so that I can, see all my patients and be a good dad and be a present husband and invest in real estate. Like that, there's a lot of time in the day when you actually like think about it, but it feels like there's not. But I encourage everyone, like, take that time in the morning to have that quiet time, to like spend that time thinking and game planning your day, and it's going to be substantially better than what it'd be without it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I want to emphasize the fact that, like you said, journaling is probably something that not many people do, but many people should, because it's amazing the amount of facts that we forget in our lives.
Yeah.
And by just writing them down day by day, we can go back a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and look at how we thought at that time and what our plans were at that time, our goals. And it's amazing to remind yourself where you were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and see where you are right now. So it's a continuum of goal setting that is written down. It's not in your head. It's not anywhere else. And I would totally encourage everybody to write them down. Goals and passions and things that you want to do in your life. You mentioned your morning routine, and also the day goes by after you come back from work. Any podcasts, any books you like to read, any people you like to be around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, the saying's kind of cliche, but your net worth is your net work. And another, great way to network with folks, or at least to like get exposed to different people, is podcast. Of course, I do host the Physicians and Properties podcast. We just had your episode on, which was amazing. So folks should definitely listen to that. And, I think podcasts are such a great way to like tap into a network or tap into a mindset or see what's possible and what folks are able to achieve that you might not otherwise have gotten that exposure to. Some podcasts I love the Action Academy podcast with my buddy Brian Lubin. That one's an incredible podcast on entrepreneurship and real estate. Basically, his whole mantra is like how he can get you out of your W-2 within 6 months. And so through entrepreneurship and real estate. So that's an incredible podcast. Bigger Pockets, of course, from a real estate perspective, is a great podcast. I haven't listened to it in a while, and there's been some changes. The Rich Summers podcast has some good real estate content. Your podcast, of course, Stellar Success, is a good podcast. There's a lot of them out there. And, I think it's helpful for folks to realize like you can take that time when you're driving or when you're at the gym to learn something new instead of just listening to music. And I love music. I think there's absolutely a time and a place for it. But like, hey, why not take that 20, 25-minute drive each way to learn something for 35 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how long your drive is. And that can completely transform your life, which has been fortunate for me. That's how I found real estate investing. And that's how we'll be able to practice medicine and live life how we want to here soon when I can get out of the Air Force. And so, that's kind of a tangential answer, but a lot of great podcasts out there.
That's great, Alex. So I want to remind everyone, you're a dad, you're a husband, you're serving our country, you're a doctor, you're a podcaster, and you're a real estate investor. Anything else I can add to this?
I don't know. No, I think that's it.
So I want to ask you from the professional point of view, right? Because my audience are people like us, medical professionals. Mm-hmm. How is it possible for you to do all these things in a day? How do you structure your mindset to be able to attain those goals in each of those fields and be good at it?
Yeah, I think priorities are one thing, and I think the other is just being present. Like for me, when I'm at the gym, I want to be at the gym. When I'm working in the clinic seeing patients, I'm working in the clinic seeing patients. And when I'm home, I want to be with my family. And so, that's just how I have structured my life. And so, for example, when I get home from work, I take my phone, I put it on the face down on the kitchen counter. I don't touch it until my son Jack goes to bed, because there's nothing more important than my family, right? And if I keep telling people that, but I don't actually live it out, then who am I? And so that's one thing that I do. And then you find that, like, hey, if you don't have these distractions and if you're just actually present, and it is something that I'm trying to work on every day, if you're just actually present, like that time is so much more valuable. There's so much more of a connection. And like, even if you only have 30 minutes to play with your kid, or even if that's 2 minutes to play with your kid, like my son right now, like he love to him is time and time spent with him. And so I want to try and give him as much of that as I can while he's awake. Now, when Jack goes to bed at 7:30, like that's when it's game time to like work on business and real estate and so forth as well. And I'm very fortunate to have an incredible wife, Stephanie, who's like very understanding that right now we're in this building phase of our life where if we, keep investing in real estate and doing our other business ventures, like that's going to buy a lot of time freedom in the future to spend more time together as a family. But that's how I do it. And then I also take times. I think there's a periods in your life of acceleration, and there's periods of your life of navigation and kind of figuring out what's next. And so we try and take that time. And so for us as a family, a big thing has been we bought a camper. I live in Colorado, as we mentioned, and so we bought a camper and we fixed it up together. And we'll go on family camping trips, and it's so great. I personally love to go on camping trips where we have no cell service, so we can just unplug. And it's just so great to have that time together. And then you realize, like, the first day, there's a little bit of anxiety of like, oh, I should be doing this, or oh, I might miss this. But then by the third and fourth day, you're like, this is amazing. And then you get back and you turn your phone on, you're like, oh, the world kept spinning without me. And so you really realize like what's important and what's not. And, the only people who are going to remember that I stayed late working in the clinic, it's going to be my sons and my wife. Like they're the only people that are going to remember. It's not the patients. It's not the GPM. It's not the healthcare administrator. It's not the health system. They don't care. It's my family that's going to remember that. So I just try and be present and do the best job I can at what I'm working on at that moment in time.
That's very well said, Alex. I love that. And, like they say, the only people who really care you stayed late at work is your family.
Yeah.
Because there's, the people that are missing you, basically. You touched on a subject that a lot of people are worried about, I would say, multitasking, and the fact that you dedicate yourself to one single thing at a time to be focused on and really attain your goals with that, like staying with your son, playing with your son, or talking to your wife and putting the phone down. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand, that they strive to multitask, but they fail at so many things by doing that. And just by focusing on one single thing that you want to do that day and do it well, it's probably making the biggest difference in your day as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch gears a little bit, and I know you're a very passionate real estate investor. And as a doctor, I want to address my audience and give you an opportunity of telling people, how did you start in real estate investing, why, and where are you now with that?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. So the start in real estate, I was always that kid that was interested in real estate. You remember those like booklets they used to create that had the homes that were for sale, and you could pick it up at the grocery store and like flip through it. That was me looking through that quite some time ago. So always was interested in that. And I always had that entrepreneurial drive. Like my brother and I, Andrew, he's the man, we're identical twins. We would go around and shovel driveways and, do landscaping. We had a little landscaping business where we like mowed all the houses in the cul-de-sac in the summers. And we just always had that entrepreneurial drive. And then when I was in college getting ready to go into med school, I got a $20,000 signing bonus with the Air Force. And my dad and I were walking through the streets of Richmond, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about taking that $20,000, buying a property, fixing it up while you're in med school and renting it out, and then keeping that as a rental when you move? And unfortunately, I did what a lot of kids do, and I didn't listen to him, but he planted the seed at that moment. He just didn't know it at that point in time, but he planted the seed to think about things differently of like, hey, I don't need to just be paying rent for a house. I can figure out other ways. So luckily, a couple years into med school, then I was like, hey, let me get a roommate, split these costs, save more money, and go from there. And then I knew when I was in residency, I was going to buy a property, fix it up, and turn that into a rental, which we did. So started with a kind of a live-in flip in Florida. I got that on a no money down physician loan. Cost me $58 out of pocket. There was some title fee that couldn't be covered, and I remember like being terrified to buy this house for $58, and now it cash flows like $1,000 a month, and it's worth double in value. It was a fantastic investment. But I remember being so scared. It was like, hey, $58, I don't want to pay that, you know. And so started there, and then we bought some short-term rentals. We moved to Colorado Springs, and we house hack our basement here. We actually still do that to this day. So we have renters that stay in the basement, either short-term or mid-term rentals, and they cover pretty much all our mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And then we're able to funnel that savings into more real estate investing. We've invested in a mobile home park syndication. I've helped raise capital for a hotel. So I own a small piece of a hotel in the Smoky Mountains, which is pretty cool. And then we own 8 residential assisted living homes. 5 we own outright, 3 we own in a fund that we started. So residential assisted living is our main focus, and that's where we're focused on going forward.
Very interesting. Very interesting. From one little house to some assisted living properties.
Yeah.
Now, where do you want to go with real estate investing? Because there's a lot of talk in the medical profession about having different kinds of passive income streams, and people would love to have that, especially if they're burned out or they want to retire or they don't want to practice anymore. And you mentioned one of the properties that is giving you $1,000 cash flow a month. How do you build a passive income stream? What would you advise people to do? And where do you personally want to go with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for folks who are just getting started, the best thing that you can do is, as we mentioned before, get in the room with the right people. Whether that is through a mastermind, whether that's going to a local real estate meetup, whether that's just networking over the internet. There's so many ways to connect with folks. And that is such a great protective measure for you to, like, one, learn from folks who have already done it, but also have someone to bounce ideas off of or deals off of, and they can help you. Another way you can do that is through partnerships, right? Like find a partner who has complementary skills to you, and partner together. 50% of a deal is better than 0% of a deal. And so that's another way to do it as well. And I have 2 amazing partners, Charlie and Luke, and we've been able to grow our assisted living business so much faster together than we would ever do if each of us were working individually. In terms of where I want to go in the future, I really believe that real estate and entrepreneurship can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want to. And so I started Physicians and Properties really kind of to document that journey as I went from, full-time physician in the Air Force to like whatever the future is going to look like for me. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like, which is exciting, but I can at least say, like, we're fortunate through the passive income that our real estate investments will generate now and in the future, that, like, if I want to practice medicine 2 days a week or not at all, I can do that. If I want to practice medicine 5 days a week in a job that I love, I'll be able to do that. And so I think it gives you a protective measure of, like, the ability to say, like, no, I'm not going to see more patients, or I don't have to do that surgery, or I don't have to do that moonlighting shift, because you have that passive income coming in. I don't know what the long-term, like, number is. I don't have a specific passive income goal, or a pig, if you will, that I want to hit. But I just think of, like, hey, as long as I'm loving what I'm doing in the real estate space and teaching others, and loving practicing medicine how I'm practicing in that moment in time, then whatever that passive income is at that time is enough. But we're going to keep building. I'm very much a visionary and a dreamer, and I'm just going to keep building this probably as long as I'm alive and never actually retire, because the thought of, like, just sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas does not sound appealing to me. But the thought of, like, being able to take a Tuesday, go to the beach and drink pina coladas, that sounds much more appealing. And so hopefully that makes sense and answers your question a little bit.
No, absolutely. I totally relate to this. And the fact that, people have numbers written on their goals, it's something that a lot of people do, but most people don't. And just having a very simple goal of being better than you were yesterday, learning more than you are learning yesterday, and progress, like you said, 1% every day, it's probably a great goal to have. And life is life. You don't know where the life is going to go for you, and nobody has a crystal ball. You can make your future, but you have to build your destiny. So if you would advise someone that wants to start as a medical professional, wants to start investing in real estate to build some passive income, what do you think the first step should be?
Yeah, I think the first step is educating yourself. We do not get any, at least I didn't get any, business or real estate education in high school, college, or medical school that would be helpful to set me up for success from a real estate investing space. So I think fortunately we live in a time where all the information we could ever want or need is on YouTube or in podcasts. Like your cell phone can get you all the information you need to get started investing in real estate. I think that that's the first hurdle is certainly educating yourself. The next is kind of that folks kind of tend to wrestle with is what asset class am I going to invest in? I answer that by telling folks to think about it as you're going to a buffet at the mall and you walk around and you try all the free samples and you try and figure out, hey, this is what I like and this is what I'm going to eat for dinner. And so it is totally okay to be like, hey, I'm going to try investing in a short-term rental, a long-term rental here and there, a syndication, residential assisted living, whatever it may be. Figure out what you like and then sit down and eat dinner. For you, it's multifamily. For me, it's residential assisted living. But it took a lot to figure that out along the way. And that's okay. A lot of folks get so worried about shiny object syndrome and analysis paralysis, and that just get started is the big thing. The next hurdle, I think, after you figure out what asset class you may or may not want to invest in is location or what market you're going to work in. Or invest in. And that's really important. Don't get me wrong. But so people get so hung up on the market of like, hey, what's the net migration and what jobs are coming in, what jobs are coming out, and all these other things. And that's very important. But that's just another roadblock that you get stuck at. It's stuck at analysis paralysis and never get started. The way you can combat all of this is, like I mentioned before, getting into a room with people who've done it before you. And it's not only going to compress time, it's going to compress energy, and it's going to be the right people. We talked about on the podcast you were on with me, ETP, so energy, time, and people, right? Like leveraging your energy, time, and people is going to make you grow so much faster. And so that's kind of the three main hurdles I think folks hit initially. And the one way that you can easily overcome that is by networking and community, and then just taking action. You just have to get started. Once you do that, that snowball is going to start going, and it's going to grow way faster than you ever thought possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That takes one thing. Takes thinking out of your comfort zone and getting a little bit of uncomfortable with your risk management.
Yeah.
How's that working for you? How is your risk management profile?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally like to be the dumbest person in the room. I think we talked about that on your on the episode that you were on too. Is like I think that, and that's something that took a lot of time to figure out. Like, hey, if I'm the dumbest person in the room, then I'm surrounding myself with people who are light years ahead of me, and oftentimes who want to pull you up with them and help you grow with them. And so I think that mitigates a lot of risk by doing that and by learning from those people. But it takes a mindset shift to realize like, hey, it's okay. Like I'm okay with being uncomfortable and not knowing that. And I think that doctors struggle with that a lot because we're very analytical people. We want to have all the facts, we want to have the radiology studies and the labs to try and make the best possible choice for our patients, which is great. And that's fantastic. But you can't really know all the variables in medicine, and you can't really know all the variables in real estate investing either. Like at some point, you just have to make a decision. And so I would say I'm on the higher risk spectrum, but I think that is because I know a lot of folks, and I'm fortunate to know that like there's someone ahead of me that's probably willing to help me at any step along the journey going forward. And so that risk might look higher, but it's really like artificially lower, or it's mitigated by the steps that are in place or the folks that I know or the network that I've been fortunate to be a part of.
Yes, I agree with that. Alex, tell us a little bit about your projects right now. What excites you the most? What are you focused on? And what's going on?
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm super excited. This is my first day of some paternity leave. So excited to spend this time with you and get to do this podcast episode. But I'm really excited actually for some time with family coming up here. I'm going back home to Virginia, and then we're doing a 3-week camping trip out to Yosemite. So I'm trying to take some time to just connect with the family and uncharge. I'm still going to like do a little bit of work here and there. But I'm excited to just really take that time and unwind and be present with them. But what we're working on really is assisted living. Residential assisted living, I think, is the best opportunity in real estate investing for now and for decades to come. And it's pretty simple. If I can share some numbers, we're about 1 million beds short in the residential assisted living world right now, 946,000 to 1 million or so, depending on where you're reading. And right now, 82% of folks who are in these assisted living homes are part of the silent generation. We have 70 million baby boomers in America. They're not yet aging into these assisted living homes. And out of that 70 million, 7 out of 10 of them are going to require long-term care, roughly, which is 59 million boomers who are going to require long-term care at some point in the next couple of decades. And so the supply-demand mismatch that exists for residential assisted living or assisted living beds in general is enormous. And residential assisted living allows you to provide a boutique home-like environment where those residents can get that personalized care, where you have like a 1-to-5 caregiver ratio instead of a 1-to-30 like you're getting at some of these big box facilities. And it's in a home-like, community-like environment where they're able to thrive for their last few years of life. And so it's an incredible opportunity to not only make a significant financial return, but also make an incredibly significant impact on the community and on the lives of these seniors and their families. So we're really focused on the residential assisted living space. We recently started a mastermind called the RAL Room, or the RAL Room, however you want to call it, which is an assisted living mastermind. It's the only one of its kind that I know of, where we have partnered with experts who come into the mastermind, and they're part of the community, and they help the members as well as us helping them buy their first or their next residential assisted living home. And we do that through a whole course that we've built out through this school community, SKOOL, which is this incredible community. We've built out multiple modules and courses that will take you kind of soup to nuts, how to buy your first or next assisted living home. And then we have weekly calls where we bring in experts and they talk about specific things. For example, tonight we have a lady, Erin Rinder, who does memory care. She owns a memory care franchise called Legato Living. She's coming in and talking all about memory care and should you work with a franchise or should you not, and that aspect of things as well. So every week we have expert interviewers who come in. And then we also have community accountability pods for folks. And so these pods are meeting weekly on their own, and they're working on growing together, and they have that accountability and that networking that's so important going forward. So really putting a lot of passion and time and energy in the RAL Room, which has been great. And then we're working on building our assisted living business a bit more as well. We started a fund to invest in some deals. We just closed up some raise for 3 homes in Wisconsin. And so we're looking at more deals and likely going to start raising some capital for some more deals here soon. And then in the meantime, if all that's not enough, Tudor, we're working on trying to figure out how our business, Open Range Capital, how we can also get in owning the real estate and the operations piece, and essentially how we can operate with a manager so we don't have to be involved in the day-to-day aspect of the assisted living care, and growing that to 200 beds or so over the next few years as well. So a lot of things we're working on, all trying to focus as much as we can on assisted living and going from there.
That's great. That's a great goal, Alex. I really love that. And you said something very important. The more you try to change people's lives for the better, the more return on your finances you're going to have, because helping other people is going to help yourself. And that's the biggest return and the most beautiful return, I would say, in terms of community help.
Yeah, it's really cool too. It's like, kind of values-based investing, I guess. Like you're making a return, but you're also impacting a community significantly and providing such better care. And, a lot of the folks in our mastermind community, or a lot of the folks that I talk to are physicians, they're healthcare workers, they're burnt out, and a lot of us have seen the bad of like the current senior care situation in some of these big box facilities. And we're taking care of the patients that are coming in with these pressure ulcers because they haven't been moved in the bed for who knows how long, and they're sitting in their urine. And a residential assisted living home is the opposite of that. And it really provides opportunity for folks to get exceptional care, and it's more cost effective too for the residents. And so it's just a win-win all around. And I think that's why so many doctors and healthcare workers are drawn to that space, because we want to continue helping. We want to invest in something that's bigger than ourselves, and we want to care for folks. And you can really do all of that in residential assisted living. So that's a huge reason why I love it so much.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great purpose in general. Alex, how can people learn more about these things that you're doing, and where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can kind of find me anywhere if you just type in Alex Schloe. So that's one way to do it. I do host the Physicians and Properties podcast. We have some great episodes on assisted living there. But if you're interested in joining the mastermind or learning more about residential assisted living, that's called the RAL Room. If you just go to theralroom.com, that'll come right up, and you're able to see a bit more about the mastermind, or just reach out in any way. I'm happy to connect, happy to chat with folks, happy to help out in any way. And you can find that information on physiciansandproperties.com. So I'm kind of all over the internet, but don't hesitate to reach out, and more than happy to connect with anyone.
Absolutely. I certainly recommend people to check things out of what you're doing and connect with you, because you can be a great resource for your specific niche, I would say.
I try to be. I'm also lucky to get to talk to amazing people like you all the time. And so if folks are interested in other asset classes, I am fortunate now to know a lot of people in the real estate space. I'm more than happy to connect people with other folks who are investing in multifamily or different commercial projects or flipping or wholesaling. So any interest in real estate, please don't hesitate to reach out.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here and for your time, and good luck in all your endeavors.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.